The Shepherd Podcast begins now.
Welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. I'm Joe, and I'm your host today. And today we're continuing some of our Advent devotionals, and we're looking at the book Changed in the Waiting, which is by the Foundry Publishing. In fact, if you want to get a copy of it for yourself, there's daily devotionals for the whole Advent season, and you can find those in ebook form online by going to thefoundrypublishing.com. Make sure you put the word "the" in front of there, because otherwise you'll be going to someplace else. So it's thefoundrypublishing.com, and the book is called Changed in the Waiting. So today we have with us Pastor Tim, and we're going to be taking one of the devotionals from that book and talking about that. Welcome in, Tim.
Good to be here today. Looking forward to sharing a little bit.
Yes, it's kind of ironic that in this week that of hope that we talk about waiting, and we were just reminiscing about all of the busyness that's going on at the church, and sometimes we associate waiting with kind of a quiet time and not a whole lot going on, and boy, around here it's been anything but that.
Yeah, that's for sure. It is a hopping place all over the campus,
yes,
the school,
yes.
the church, the way we're interacting with the school right now. So yeah, lots of things.
But it's great. It's great to see parents and kids and families and the senior adults and everybody that is just kind of getting all into the season and got plenty of good things coming up. But we do want to take a moment to just kind of step back and take a look at some scripture and devotional for today. So tell us a little bit about today's devotional.
Well, we are going to be talking about waiting today, and I know that's the premise of the entire book that was written by it's either Michael Levine or Michael L. Levine. I'm not exactly sure if I'm pronouncing the name right.
Well, you were brave enough to try it. I wasn't even brave enough to try it.
Gotcha. But as I was thinking about this, it's hard not to read some of these things and then prepare for sharing without thinking about things in my personal context and also what I'm seeing and hearing through people here at Shepherd. And when I think about waiting, sometimes it's that quiet, as you were just talking about a few minutes ago, but it's also waiting in the midst of real challenge, real struggle. I think about people that are waiting on diagnoses, people that have a diagnosis, or it looks like a diagnosis, for example, of cancer in a friend that I know, for example, but they're waiting for test results, and then those test results are going to produce another period of waiting, and so there's waiting that's just really hard to be in the middle of.
Yeah.
And so in the context of that, I'm looking at what was shared by Michael Levine, and starts off with Psalm 130, and Psalm 130 reads this way: "I wait for the Lord, my whole being waits, and in His word I put my hope. I wait for the Lord more than watchmen wait for the morning, more than watchmen wait for the morning. Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with Him is full redemption. He Himself will redeem Israel from all their sins." And there's a personal story that the author shared that also kind of makes me think about what I just shared a moment ago. She opens this up by talking about a friend who has a son that's going through a debilitating chronic illness. And then in addition to that, she has several other children, two of whom also are struggling with some kind of a special need.
Right.
And so the author calls this person, she is my resident expert in hope. And those things didn't really go together for me, because I'm thinking, how for this woman to say that I'm experiencing this with 3 of my 4 kids, debilitating and challenging things, but she's her resident expert in hope. And so there is it's just an encouragement to me to think about somebody that's experiencing that, and yet
I mean, at first blush, you would think she might be an expert in despair instead of hope. But she actually went into kind of a description of how she looks at hope.
She did, and there's a definition that she had, and I'll just share this verbatim. Her definition of hope is made up of 3 equal parts. 1/3 is acknowledging the things that are not how you wish they were. 1/3 is deciding not to resign yourself to how things are now. And 1/3 is recognizing you're not actually in charge of the outcome.
Yeah.
That was really, really encouraging to me. So, and then she goes on to talk about the definitions of hope and waiting. And the English language just is not very deep in terms of you'll say a word and you'll have some idea of what you think it means. You'll make some assumptions. But the Hebrew words, and again, I may not pronounce these things correctly, but when we talk about the Hebrew words for hope, the Hebrew word is kavah, which is Qavah, and yahal. And so the author shares with us that these are used throughout the Psalms, and sometimes these words are translated as wait, and sometimes they're translated as hope. And those are 2 words that I never would have put together or thought would be somehow aligned. Waiting, hoping. I saw them as something separate. In Psalm 130, that kavah is used twice and translated as wait, and the yahal is also used twice and translated as hope. And so she goes on to talk about how that kavah is a verb that means to wait, and it's used to form the noun tikva, which means hope. And then kavah is also connected with concepts of, and these were interesting as I thought about how she talked about the concepts of tension, twisting, stretching, endurance, and strength. That just takes weight and hope to a different level when I think about trying to do it in the context of that definition.
You know, when you're talking about those definitions and how do wait and hope come together, one word that comes to mind for me in English would be expectation. Mm-hmm. Like it's with both waiting in the way we think of waiting and in hope, that there's actually an expectation that something is going to happen.
Yep. You know, that makes me think about a scripture that as I was trying to go back and look at another verse that might help us here, and it comes from Isaiah 40:31. And if you read the NIV, it says it this way: but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. And with your reflection, those who expect, those who are looking forward in expectation. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Again, as I think about the author's friend, and to soar on wings like eagles, I can see her growing weary for sure. Mm-hmm. To walk and not be faint, I can see her at times just being at her wit's end, and yet she has hope. But what's interesting is, if you look at the New King James Version, it's almost the same, with the exception of hope is now wait. So for the New King James Version is this: but those who wait in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. And in both those word choices, we can understand why the translators might go one way or the other, because there is a little bit of nuance to both of those words. As you said, English not the most perfect language, but both of those words together really painting the full picture.
Yeah, they really do. I recently saw a post on Facebook and Instagram from Jill Barber, and Jill is the wife of Sam Barber, and Sam was our senior pastor here for 8 years, and he's been in different roles in the denomination. But Sam, when he was reflecting on Zechariah's story, is what was posted here on the Facebook post. Sam had done a message on Zechariah. Zechariah, of course, was one very experienced in waiting for the coming of the Messiah. But Sam made this reflective statement that I think is really interesting, and especially as we think about Advent right now in this period of waiting. Sam said, "It's against the grain to get quiet and reflective amidst the hustle and bustle. It's a discipline to make space and time to find God. But Advent calls you to do it." I just thought that was a powerful statement, and it's hard to. It is against the grain. It's against the grain for us to wait. I mean, I'm not a fan of waiting. I don't like to be in lines, and yet and I probably bring it on myself because I tend to get places early if I'm going someplace, and so I'm going to wait. But it does go against the grain for us to be quiet and reflective, as he talks about, but to make space and time to find God. And I think that's where it's in the waiting that we find those more intimate and special moments with God, that it's in the quiet, that it's in that wait, that he reveals something we didn't expect.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and as you had mentioned, we have to make a concerted effort to step away. So as busy as things might be around here, around the church, or maybe as you're listening today, as busy things might be around your home and trying to get gifts purchased and wrapped and making all of your arrangements for who's going where this holiday season, that one of the reasons we kind of took some time out on the podcast was exactly for this purpose, to say, hey, let's just take a step back and remember and enjoy this season for what it is that we are looking with anticipation and expecting the coming. And so any concluding thoughts for us as we wrap it up today?
I think the only thing that I might suggest is if someone's looking for a place, this is obviously a great resource that we've already suggested, but through like the YouVersion Bible app, there are a number of different devotionals that you could do, and you can jump in anytime. It doesn't have to start at a particular day to be in the Advent season, but just to be able to take that and allow it to the devotional to speak to you, to just kind of back up for a few moments, reflect on the scripture, and then allow that to guide your prayer for the day. And I think that'll help people kind of reset their mindset and maybe even their body in this busy season.
Wonderful. Well, certainly we want to encourage you today to do exactly as we've been talking about. Take some time out just to reflect on the expectation of the coming of Jesus and what that has meant in your life and what it could mean in the lives of those around you. We hope that you'll share that with your friends and your family. We also encourage you to go to shepnaz.org and find out everything that's going on at the church. We have a big program coming up called When Everything Changed, and we'd like you to reserve a seat for that. For Pastor Tim, I'm Joe. Have a great day. This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.